Hey guys,
What's up, man?
how are you?
Look at that hair! Wow!
Woo!
Holy shit! How you probably haven't cut it since the Great Depression. Wow, that's some flow.
Oh, I haven't cut my hair since 2019.
Wow!
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole change in lifestyle, man. You got the ponytail. You got to be able to do it. You know what I mean?
You look like a guy like you're a barista now or something.
I was a barista when I was first starting out in comedy when I was about 25 or 26. That was one of my many part-time jobs that I had to keep my comedy career afloat.
Right.
Like a barista in the sense, like when I think of barista, because I don't really drink coffee, so when I think of barista, I think of someone who's doing all the fancy shit with the cappuccinos, or is a barista just like a Starbucks employee?
Yeah, I was a Starbucks employee. I could really tamp an espresso.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you doing this. We got to give a shout out to Michelangelo. He's actually the one who made the connection. Do you know him, or you just saw like his videos that and you liked? He was doing something.
Yeah, I followed his videos and his activism, and I really liked him on Twitter. I've never met him though. I mean, I haven't met so many people that I've been contacting through this pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, and really even beyond the pandemic, like the internet, it's like you can be almost full-blown friends with somebody, or maybe even know more about them than their real life friends do. You know, like sometimes internet friends are better friends than real friends.
Yeah. I mean, the nature of the podcast is that you tell perfect strangers your deepest and darkest secrets.
Yeah.
And they have so much, and sometimes my friends will listen to these interviews and I've known them for 30 years. They'll say, I never knew that about you. I said, well, we were too close for me to share that.
Yeah. Perfect strangers will know it all. I don't know. I get in here, I get in front of the microphone, and it's honestly like, it's my therapy. Like if I didn't do a podcast, I'd probably have had a meltdown by now.
No, I agree with that. I think my therapist said it early on in our career together. He said, once you tell everybody these inner thoughts and these inside secrets about yourself, they'll have nothing on you to emotionally blackmail you or ridicule you or expose you. It's actually, it does the opposite of what you think it will do.
Being an open book, getting the skeletons out there, it's like,
I mean, that's great therapy advice where it's like, go be B-Rabbit. Remember 8 Mile?
Yeah.
Go be B-Rabbit.
Tell them everything, man. Yeah.
I am white. I do live in a trailer park.
The only thing that 8 Mile didn't get right is the idea that you only get one shot, because first of all, you get 1,000 shots in show business. Second, he gets a second shot within the 2-hour movie.
Yeah, he fails the first time. Like a week later, he's back. You only get 2 shots. It just doesn't have the same rhyme. Well, I feel like anybody who has ever seen The Great Depresh can relate to it on some level. And, we always joke and talk about how, we got our own issues with self-confidence or whatever it may be. And if you do have any of that, it's like a required reading type of book. It's
one
like
of
a
the
Bible.
Best stand-ups I've seen in
I don't know
how.
It's so much more than that.
I made so many people sit down and watch it with me just to be like, Gary saying it better.
Yeah.
But this is what I want you to think of me.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. It's not even, you can see plenty of great stand-ups that make you laugh, but The Great Depression is like, this is going to change how you view things, man. It's important stuff, I feel like.
Oh, that's really nice to hear. I mean, I would like to take credit for having intended to open up a conversation or make it easier for people to talk about this. But really, the only thing I knew how to do was sort of make jokes, write jokes about my experience. And what I've learned over the years is that you can get really specific and connect and have people resonate with it even better than when you speak in broad terms. There are so many people who have approached me, and they had completely different lives, different backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
Were women or people who didn't play sports, and they connected on this, and so I think it's I guess it's just a byproduct of putting yourself out there and being honest that people will connect in that way. But that really means a lot to me, that you guys, because you're young and not in stand-up comedy, that these things resonate.
Absolutely, man. And I think what you said is so true. And again, the internet kind of provides that, because you're able to connect with a zillion more people than, maybe back in the day you see someone at a show who says like, hey, I went through this, but other than that, what can you really? So I remember, like, I went through some family shit, and I remember thinking that my job was like a big part of the reason why. And then I ended up connecting with a ton of guys who had every different job, but the same exact experience. And I was like, all right, so it's, there's much more than that. And, it really is like a deeper thing. And you realize that everybody kind of, as specific as it is, like, so many people end up going through the same thing, which is kind of weird to believe in this world of 8 billion people, that the same stuff is happening to a lot of people out here.
Right. And the other thing is that no two depressions or any type of mental illness is alike, but there's enough overlap in the experience and just the overall feeling of it. And I was frustrated for years in not being able to really get exactly how it felt, not finding the right analogy or the right story. And what I've learned, another great lesson, is just say what you're feeling, and the ideas and the tone will come across, and just it's enough to be out there and saying it as best you can.
Right.
And at the very least, you'll feel better. I mean, I had no idea that eventually I'd put these jokes on television. I mean, yes, it was always a dream to be able to monetize my mental illness, but
that's every little boy's dream.
But initially, it was enough that I was able to get 100 people or as many as 1,000 people to laugh along with these stories, and then luckily I had a manager who could see beyond the jokes, and say we should pitch this as an idea, and he brought me together with this guy, and you've probably seen his work, because he did the Doc and Daryl 30 for 30.
Oh, yeah.
The You Don't Know Bo for ESPN. And then he did Gary Shandling's documentary with Judd Apatow, and we met, and we just, and you guys know from doing business that you pitch ideas in the room, and either you find out a month later that they're into it, or never find out that they're not into it.
Right.
And right that day in the room, he says, let's work on this. And we worked on it. And I've never, his name is Mike Bonfiglio, and I've never worked with somebody who was so hands-on with he didn't change jokes or add things specifically, but he just was, it's always great to have, and you guys have somebody honest with you. And by honest, I mean, they either laugh when you're funny or don't laugh when you're not funny. Mm-hmm. And you get an idea, well, this can work, or this will at least be interesting. So I'd never collaborated so extensively with somebody, and it was really, I couldn't have done it without him. And also my wife, who I sort of collaborated on my recovery. She used to go to all my psychiatry appointments, and she would do research. She grew mushrooms in our Midtown apartment, and it is very delicate to grow mushrooms in outdoors and indoors. The light and the heat. I mean, she was something else, man.
What a woman!
Are we talking psychedelic mushrooms or regular mushrooms here?
Oh, psychedelic mushrooms.
What a woman.
Both would have been impressive, but
you know how many guys out there could come home and be like, "Babe, I'm on mushrooms," and he'd be like, "Are you fucking kidding me? You're in the doghouse." She's out here making them up for you, man. That's great. You need that.
Yeah, and they're freeze dried. So when we connect, if you're into that, I could bring some. I was always I was always too afraid, having read stories of Syd Barrett from Pink Floyd not coming back from his trip. So I've never taken them, but I've heard their quality.
I've only started probably last year, and it's not a regular thing.
Wait, hang on. So she grows them, but you haven't taken them?
No, because here was the thing. At the time, I tried to get into a mushroom study, so that they were testing the use of psilocybin mushrooms in microdosing as an antidepressant, and it's very promising. It's successful, but I wasn't able to get into that treatment test because I had electroconvulsive therapy, and they didn't know what the interaction would be, or whether I was recovering because of the ECT or the mushrooms. So I wasn't permitted in that test. So I didn't trust our skills as technicians, as lab technicians, to give me the right dose, and I was frightened. But as far as one of those gift of the magi labor of loves, it was
the thought
really,
that counts.
Really, it's so thoughtful.
Right.
That must be such a tough. Like, it's one thing to collaborate with your wife in your recovery, and then collaborate with a guy who you said you didn't know, right? In such like an intimate special with Mike.
Yeah,
that had to be like really hard.
So true, but I will say one thing, and this is such a great thing to know about comedy. If you share a sense of humor with somebody, so that when he got there, he noticed this picture of Chris Elliott in my collection of pictures of comedians, and he said, "You like Chris Elliott?" And I said, I'm obsessed with him. I've memorized everything he's ever said. And so we just started going back and forth, and he wasn't a poser. He's
the real deal. Yeah.
Yeah. His knowledge was as extensive as mine. And once I knew that he liked this sort of comedy, we connected in such a way. And the other thing is that you trust somebody's opinion on your jokes, because they like the same type of jokes. It's a special connection. So we connected. I mean, within 72 hours, we were on the same wavelength.
You know what you said there that I love and I miss so much is that you really connected because you were just saying lines you both liked back and forth. That's dead. That's like how we grew up. We just said like Talladega Nights lines and Anchorman lines and Dane Cook lines, and we just say them to each other. And now we're like, oh, I'll just pull up the video for you. That's not as fun. There's no camaraderie to that. Right. There's no back and forth. There's no tennis aspect. There's a very real friendship activity there of just saying lines from like your favorite movies back and forth, and we just never do that anymore.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I always thought we were silly because we didn't even write these things that we're repeating over and over again to our friend and connecting on them. And sometimes I'll hear people will do that with my jokes, and I can't express how meaningful that is to me.
I mean,
Gary, if you want to do it, let's go. I'll go back and forth with you.
I mean, the joke about drinking Sprite and the scene with your mother where your poetry and your schoolwork were such an obvious allegory for depression, the tree that could only grow through tears. I mean, so here's what I struggle with. It's so fucking funny, but I feel bad laughing about it because it's like, I mean, the thought of like, it's so sad and your mom didn't notice it. And I'm like, I feel terrible for laughing about it sometimes, but God damn, is that funny.
Yeah. I just feel that part of the I don't want to say luck or what do you call it? Like the thing is that you can tell really horrific stories about a car accident if it's you narrating it.
Yeah.
Because if you're narrating the story of the car wreck, there's implicit in that is that you survived it, so people can't get too sorry for you or sad. I had a smile on my face when I'm telling these stories of being hospitalized and getting this rather arcane treatment, or to most people it's obscure, but it's actually made a huge comeback. The electroconvulsive therapy.
Crazy. I had no idea.
The fact that I can tell it was,
yeah, I did not know that was, happening.
I mean, yeah, my doctor had recommended it years ago, and I was so horrified from seeing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest when I was in college that I dismissed it immediately. And then I got desperate, man. I had been 2.5 years without really seeing the sun, as it were. And I said, well, I've tried ketamine, and I've tried these other drugs, and I've tried these other methods of treatment. And so I want to get my life back. I want to get me back. And so I was ready to try it, and it worked really quickly, and it was dramatic. I mean, I had anxiety that was making my life unbearable. It was a torture. And within 3 treatments, which took a week, it would be every other day, that the anxiety was knocked out. And I was so grateful for that.
Crazy. How are you now? Where are you at? Like, is that something that's ongoing, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, I look at it kind of the way a recovering addict or alcoholic would look at their recovery. I feel like I'm in recovery, but it's going on. I feel like my recovery came into view in October of 2017. I can remember just having hope and optimism, and not very grand ideas. I just said, I can continue to do stand-up, and I don't know if I can make a special, because my hands were shaking so much whenever I would perform, and my lip was so raw from biting it all the time from nerves. But I gradually got better, and by that, so that was October of 2017, and then by December of 2018, I had performed this 1.5-hour long sort of one-man show for the executives at HBO, and they bought it, and then we shot the special in June of 2019, and then it came out in October of 2019. So that's a 3-year recovery, sort of a remission, if you look at it that way.
How did you do Tourgasm? That's earlier. That's like 2005-ish, probably.
Yeah,
right?
that was 2005, I think. I mean, it was one of those things where I had to go and do the shows at night so I could kind of pull myself together for 20 minutes, and then I would just go back and sleep until I had to be on camera again. I took so many naps and just avoided, and I isolated. I mean, that's the thing. Some people can't sleep. All I wanted to do was sleep. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing that is common with depression is that you isolate and you want to be away from people, and that's exactly the wrong thing to do. It's really helpful to even if you're just. I remember at the beginning of 2018, just sitting with my best friend, and this was my best friend since we were in 5th grade. We would sit together in 2017 and watch the Celtics games pretty much in silence. We'd make a comment here and there.
Those are the best friends. Yeah. Comfort in silence. Yes.
And or we would ridicule somebody we went to high school with.
That always plays.
Yeah. For something they did 30 years ago. But other than that, we were pretty much silenced. But it was such a great feeling to get out of the house. And I remember keeping track of the things I would do during the day. And I mean, when talk about a meager to-do list, it was like walked my dogs, went over to my friend Will's to watch the Celtics, and went to the Whole Foods for coffee. I mean, that was the extent, but it was so much more active than I had been even a month prior. So right. it I always love that movie with Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss called What About Bob? And they sort of, I mean, they mock the guy's book that is called Baby Steps, but it really is effective to slowly and gradually work up to doing things like I became a runner again and started going to the gym and stuff. But at first I was just going on these long walks with my dogs where they would be like, can we pick up the pace a little bit? Because we're dragging you along.
So you said that even on Tourgasm, you were really that bad. So you were, and it was what, 10 more years until you really decided to seek help?
I would say that I wasn't as bad as I got in 2015 through 2017. I was never that bad in my life. That's what was so scary, because I had kind of learned to live with a low grade of depression. It's something that medically it's called dysthymia, and it's kind of a low grade of depression, and it's painful, but you can do a shitty job of things. You can muddle through, and you won't get any joy or relief, and things that normally would bring you some lightness or optimism. They have no effect on you. So I was able to do a really half-assed job of Tourgasm, and I was a strong enough comedian based on the 3 or 4 months a year where I would have a short break or just, it wasn't even a remission, because I still felt shitty, but I was productive. Mm-hmm. And that's what a lot of us are. We're happy to just have that sometimes, that we're getting our work done and we're able to maintain our lives and our relationships, but it's at a low grade. And luckily I was able to muddle through those and maintain a career. But over 2015 through 2017, it got to the point where I can't even muddle through anymore. I've lost even that much energy. And what's amazing to me is not only did I get to a point in my recovery where I'm not just muddling through and doing a half-assed job, I'm thriving and producing and working on multiple projects and not ducking things because I'm either afraid or I just don't have the energy or the hours out of bed to tackle them.
Is that where we're at now still? Or are you still in a Yeah.
I'm at a place where I'm writing a book.
Wow.
And I'm working on a series based on my ill-fated college football.
I mean, the best.
I'll tell you what, when I sat down my parents to watch, actually, I don't think I sat them. I think we rewatched it during quarantine, but I think I had them watch it way back when it came out early in October. And I heard my dad calling me afterwards. And I was like, the message was like, hey, like, you know, like things I go through, Gary like does a pretty good job of like talking about them. So give it a watch. And my dad called me the next day. He goes, Gary played football at the Heights? Because my dad went to BC too. I was like,
no way.
That wasn't the message, Dad.
That's not the point. So, Dad, what'd you think? You pick up some pointers about your son?
He's like,
he played football at the Heights?
He's like, Gary might have been on Danny's football team. I was like, I think Gary's too young, Dad.
That is fucking hilarious. That is fucking great.
What year did your dad graduate?
I'm going to guess. I don't know exactly. I'm going to guess 85, 86.
Okay, so he was there with Flutie. I was there 3 years after Doug Flutie, but he was obviously still a presence. And the only thing that's weird is when you're 17, you consider 3 years ago to be the dark ages and
eternity,
the olden days, and it was when I look back at it now, he probably was still coming to basketball games and stuff like that. He was always a really big basketball fan.
Yeah, my dad's friend who he still is like best friends with. He was Flutie's roommate. So when you like mentioned that like the guy had just coached Flutie to a Heisman, I forget the coach's name, but he's like, he probably overlapped with Danny. Danny.
Yeah, Jack Bicknell was the head coach for Flutie, and now Jack's son, Bob Bicknell, is a coordinator for the Niners, I think.
That was another one of my favorite. I mean, I have a million favorite lines from the special, but that one about when you're like, oh, how I wish I could tell you that not 10 feet from where you sit is my blankie.
I have to say that I had never spoken about my mental illness or the severity or being hospitalized until that year. And once I did, it was very easy. But I must say the most difficult thing and the thing I was most protective of was letting anyone outside of my immediate family know that I carried a blankie with me into college.
I mean, I feel like it kind of came back around with gravity blankets and weighted blankets. Now a lot of people have blankies, right? Do you ever do you get annoyed? Like, even like I said in the beginning of this show, like me and him go through like our issues, but like I don't have issues, you know? Like, do you get almost annoyed if people throw around the word depression or anxiety and it's like, listen, motherfucker, you don't even know the half of it? Or is it all, you know, one big thing?
No, I think because it's on a spectrum, which everybody says about everything, but it's
true.
It's because it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are times when my depression would be something like, just get out of the house and in a half hour you'll feel better. But still, it took a lot of energy to ramp up to that, walking out of the house and doing that. And then there are some times when the depression is overwhelming and I don't see any point to living anymore. And every single thing on that spectrum is valid, and you don't have to accept it. That's the other thing, is that there gets to a point in your life when you've been struggling with it for so long that you just say, well, this is me, and I am so sick and tired of trying different things that don't work. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know that there are times that it's I wouldn't call it a full-on depression, but there are times even over the past 6 months where I've been feeling lousy and have no energy, and I think I need to go on a run, and that's all. And without exception, every time I go for that run, I come back and I say, oh, that was exactly what I didn't need. So I've developed this long list of things I can do before I have to go back to the hospital. Right. And usually the first thing is works. And sometimes it's as simple as going for a walk and getting groceries or getting a coffee. It's just inertia is so powerful.
Right.
You're more likely to stay in an uncomfortable situation than expend the energy to walk out of it.
Do you think that people who suffer from mental illness or depression are more drawn to the entertainment industry, or do you think that the entertainment industry causes it, or do you think that it's just we talk about it more? So it's actually the same percentage of regular people,
right?
But it's just
it feels more.
It feels like it's more.
Right.
It's a terrific question that I love to discuss, and I've never gotten a satisfying answer, but my theory is that I don't think that we are much more likely to suffer from this, but we are 2 or 3 times more likely to talk about it.
Yep.
And that's why we get associated with it.
Right.
And also it's a lot of times it's a coping mechanism, and it turns out it's a coping mechanism that you can do for a living. Mm-hmm. And if you go into this business, you say, well, there's more rejection in this business and more criticism in this business than every other, but you realize that it's worth it because the rewards are terrific. And I mean, even just making strangers laugh in a room or getting messages back that, oh, I connected with that. I understood exactly what you were talking about when you discussed that moment in Ghostbusters where he starts playing the notes down towards the right. I mean, somebody that sort of connection, like you said earlier, we don't really have that anymore. Mm-hmm. And when you're making those connections, it's really significant. So I really feel like we're not any more likely to suffer from this, but I think we're more comfortable talking about it. And the other thing is that it's unusual for men who want to talk about it. And I hope that when guys like us, and I just saw this incredible thing about Hayden Hurst that he made from the Falcons. I mean, I was blown away with that. If you guys want to link to that or something, that was really moving and so well done. And it's about 12 minutes or so. And I have the utmost in respect, because he really put it all out there and was raw, man. I was so blown away.
Do you think that your style of comedy ever contributes to it? Like that, we had a caller call in the other day, and they were asking us about if, like, because we were joking about how bad we are at sports now, and I don't know, all kinds of self-deprecating, but also defense mechanism jokes. And he's like, do you think the fact that you guys have made those jokes for 10 years has contributed to where you're at now? And we were both like, oh, absolutely.
Like
100%.
I put myself down joking, but I've been putting myself down so much, it starts to kind of become a self-fulfilling prophecy type of thing.
Do you think that was something that kind of contributed with you?
Yeah, I think that because of my physicality, and I'm a really big guy, I think it's very disarming to hear me talk about the failures. I mean, the abject failures that I have suffered in my life, and it's again that 8 Mile thing where I'm disarming these people. They really, you're going to make fun of the fact that I was a lousy tight end and I couldn't make a block. I can do that for a half hour.
Right. Believe me, I know.
Yeah. So it's. I mean, and I also think, and I wonder if you guys get this feeling when you open up about these things. I think that part of the reason why my recovery has been so sturdy, because part of the reason is because I have finally moved to accept these things that I was either ashamed of or was hiding from people, and it doesn't seem like it's just a coincidence that the same year I opened up about my failure as a football player that I started to recover. And I mean, the other part of it is that not only was I not spurned or ridiculed for it, I was embraced, and people laughed and shared their stories. Like, that's how I connected with Adam McKay. He sent me a direct message, and I'd been a fan of his since Anchorman and Saturday Night Live. And he sent a message and he said, I was a big kid who played football and wasn't very good too. And I thought, oh, we're
that's a kinship. Yeah, that's a brotherhood right there. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
That and McKay's working with the show, right? That's going to be amazing. He's got to be one of the most sought after guys in Hollywood right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be the executive producer, and I'm working with this terrific writer, and it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I'm a nostalgic and sentimental person, but just sharing these stories from high school and college with somebody and kind of reliving it and having some perspective on it. It's really a gift.
I love it, man. We're going to play a little game with you right here, if you don't mind. It's called Answer the Internet. It's our card game with hypothetical questions from all different corners of the internet and all of our callers over the years. We'll keep it with sports for right now. If you could party with one sports team from history, who would it be?
This is a great question, and I can't believe I have an answer at the top of my list right away. The 1979 world champion Pittsburgh Pirates.
Wow.
Really? Why is that?
What about them?
Because being a sports celebrity at that time was still a sort of, I don't want to call it a subculture, but it was a subculture in sort of the way that the punk rock scene was, and
little underground, yeah,
and also there weren't yet and I will say that I've never tried cocaine, but I feel like if I was ever going to use it, 1979 was a time when I think they were still saying it's not addictive, and it's just a party drug, and I'm I'm very susceptible to being around athletes at a party celebrating, and if I saw a world champion and he offered me a bump, I think they would have called it. I couldn't have. It would be rude.
Yeah, you're a bad guest. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be rude. So I think that would be ideal, and I defy anybody on the internet to come up with a better one.
I think 79 doctors were still prescribing cocaine to hysterical women. Like, Doc, my wife's like, she's put on weight. It's like, here's some cocaine for her. Like, that's why they were always cleaning the kitchen and work around the house. Like, hey, yeah, all yipped up. That's why.
Here's a take. I think that Coca-Cola may have still been putting cocaine in their soda, and that's why people reacted so strongly against New Coke.
Yeah.
This shit sucks.
Okay, would you rather have no music for the rest of your life or have all music be sung by your significant other?
Whoa.
I have a feeling Sade has a beautiful voice.
She has a beautiful voice, and she has the most eclectic taste in music, so that she'll enjoy some of the 80s rock and roll that I'll play, but also she knows she's 34, but she knows Megan Thee Stallion and
she's a savage.
Cardi B, so she's with it as far as these artists. So I think I could do worse than a jukebox made of my significant other.
You're a big guy, so this is a good question. What's the youngest age child that could beat you up? I mean, you like. No child.
I mean, Gary's such a big guy that when I first saw Gary on Tourgasm when I was about 15 years old, I went, he's too big to be a comedian. I wrote you off immediately. As a prepubescent 15-year-old, I was like, this guy, he's too big. He's too handsome.
Can't be funny.
His muscles are too big.
Right.
It doesn't work.
Right. I mean, unless there's a child who is, one of these Russian kids who's like grown, his father makes him fight a bear or something. If we're talking about a regular American child, there's not a single one that could beat you up.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody under 14 who could beat me. I think I could beat up every kid at their bar mitzvah.
And wouldn't that be awesome? Shalom, and here's Gary, he just punches you in the face.
Okay, if you could pick any character from TV or movies to be your college roommate, who would it be?
This goes into what we were talking about earlier. I would pick Chris Elliott, who it's really interesting because we reached out to him and dedicated the special to him because that was the thing that Mike Bonfiglio and I connected on, and then we became really close friends. We went up to Maine and we slept at his house, and he barbecued for us. So they always say don't meet your heroes, but you should always meet your heroes, especially Chris Elliott, who the thing is a lot of people are not nearly as funny as you hope they would be. That's a very difficult thing to pull off. Right. And sometimes they're too funny in that they're always on, and it's irritating. But he enjoyed making us laugh, and we connected on such a level. It's really been one of the brightest things to come out of my debilitating depression was my friendship with Chris Elliott.
But Chris Elliott's not a character from TV or movies. So are you going with like the guy from Scary Movie, or are you going with the mayor of Schitt's Creek?
I'm going with he played a 30-year-old paperboy on a short-lived series that ended in 1991. It was called Get a Life. So his name was Chris Peterson, and it was basically him. And so I would want to live with Chris Peterson.
I'll tell you what, Gary. You're lucky Chris Elliott likes you because you're borderline on like crazy stalker. You love Chris Elliott, man. All right, I'm going to go back to another fight question here because I think almost anybody I've ever asked this to, I think he could, but not with you. Could you beat up Tom Cruise in a fight?
No.
Okay.
No.
I mean,
no.
I usually think that Tom Cruise, he's very He's shorter than, you would think, but he trains and all that shit. So I usually think he can beat everybody up that we talk to. But once again, you're a big fella. I feel like you could maybe.
I mean, I got to tell you, my fighting style is usually to subdue someone into a submission. So I'm a great headlocker.
Yeah.
I'll grab you by the shirt collar and pin you to a wall. But if you fight back, it's over. I will go down. But if my grabbing you in a position to block for a pass, if that cowers you, then I will be victorious. But if you fight back, I'll fold like a house of cards.
If you were on an old episode of Room Raiders, remember that MTV show?
No.
Oh, okay. So that
Room RATERS.
no Raider RAIDER like Raiders of the Lost Ark.
It was the worst. They used to go into like a teenage boy's room with a black light, and they would look through all the fucking, bodily fluids, and they would go through your top drawer, and they would go under your mattress. They would look through, your entire room as like a teenage boy.
And they would take like your 3 crushes with them.
Oh, it was the worst.
It was like 3 girls you're interested in, and you have to sit in a van and just watch them go through your room.
They would find your porno. They would be like, look at his bed sheets. There's like cum all over it. I mean, it was sick.
What masochist would submit to that?
And they were like young people.
And we wonder why this generation's fucked.
I don't, they were definitely older than me. Watching it, I felt like they were my age, but I was probably 13 at the time. I would guess they were.
They're probably in high school or college, maybe.
High school,
like,
college
maybe
kids.
to dorms.
Like, I can't imagine who would sign up for that.
Yeah, it was sickening. It was a sick show. Here's a philosophical one for you. If there were stats available for every aspect of your life, what one stat would you want to see?
This is it's
a deep one.
A philosophical aspect, so something that would be
no. You can. I think it's philosophical, but some guys say I want to know how many beers I drank over the course of my life. You can.
Oh, I would say I would want to know how many hours I dedicated to either watching, performing, or writing, pursuing comedy and jokes. Like what percentage of my life?
I mean, it's got to be like 97% of your guy. Every stand-up comic, but it's certainly someone like yourself, right?
It's ridiculous because that was I was so. I mean, they use the word obsessed now, but I just could not get enough of comedy albums and tapes from the time I was aware of this, of laughter at 4 or 5 years old. I would listen to these albums at a friend's house and like she wasn't a friend because she was babysitting me, but we would listen to Steve Martin albums over and over again. And it was just some of my best memories.
That's a lot better than his babysitter. His babysitter used to show him porn.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. He said that so genuinely. Like, no, that's not what they're supposed to do.
Oh my gosh, that's criminal.
Yeah. No, it literally is.
In 1994, it wasn't, but now, yeah.
Yeah, I had the best babysitters. I had one babysitter named Brenda, and she would play the Steve Martin albums for me, and then I had this other babysitter, and then I was 9 or 10. He would take me to the park, and we would play basketball all afternoon. And he had an incredible ability to imitate the shot styles of all the 70s, 80s stars like Irving and Lloyd Free, and he was Lloyd Free at the time. He wasn't World B. Free yet, and we used to have a blast. His name was Finn Burns. He's
quite different.
We're still friends. I don't know if you guys are still friends with the people that you walked to school with as a child, but I can't think of anything better than that.
When I was like 3 years old, I was a really bad baby. I was a pretty good kid, but a terrible baby. And my mom had a babysitter quit. She was like the old lady across the street. Her name was Mrs. Carmine. And the one time, like my mom came home and she gave him back, and she was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty sick. Pretty bad. It's not a great kid. I was like crying and shit. It wasn't like I was,
Oh, I see.
maniacal. It was like I was just a bad baby who like colicky type
See,
of
every
thing.
time I would take a nap, I wake up, he's over me with a knife.
Yeah,
I'm
it wasn't
done
anything
doing
that
it.
bad, but yeah. All right, well, listen, we really appreciate the time, especially on a Friday late like this. And, you said you should meet your heroes, and I feel like you're one of ours. So it was a real pleasure to meet you. So thank you so much for that.
Wow, that's really a nice thing to say and a beautiful thing to hear. I really appreciate that. And this was a delight. So we'll do it again sometime, maybe in person, I hope.
I would love that. Yeah. Thank you so much, man.
Gary.
Have a good one.
So much, guys. All right,
later.
have a great day.
Bye.
Okay.
I'm going to hit you with a little YouTube sabermetrics, okay? Only 15% of people who watch the videos on the KFC Radio channel are actually subscribed. That means,
Oh, you fucking lurkers. I'm
right?
tired. Yeah, I'm
Free
tired of
85%
lurkers.
freeloaders.
Retweet, like, fucking heart on Instagram.
Rate, review, subscribe.
If you enjoy content, double tap it.
Literally,
Double tap to subscribe.
just click. It doesn't, I think you only have to click it once, not even double.
Well, okay,
just
fine.
one click.
But I'm not a mathematician. Just a one click works. Because
I don't want, if you double click, you might subscribe and then unsubscribe.
Oh, true.
So just one
well,
click.
then 3 clicks.
3 clicks to subscribe, because otherwise, I mean, it literally doesn't affect you at all, and it will basically make our careers so much better.
Oh,
Please
so much
fucking
better.
do it.
Oh, you'll get us so good.
Please.
You'll get us going
Come
so
on.
good. 85% of you. Triple
Don't
like.
be poor.
Triple time. The thing. The subscribe thing.
Smash that button, as they say.